Effortless prosperity. It's a new term in many of our lives, and it's a realization that life flows. Life flows. And that means that we don't always have to be in charge. Anyone willing? Oh, this crew over here, they're pretty willing. I'm willing to be in the flow of the universe that is guiding me at every moment. Effortless prosperity, as I'll remind you from last week, is not about money. Oh, it's not about money. I've got my hand on my hip. Well, then what is it about? In our first week, we studied about peace. Peace is the basis of everything. And what peace means to me might be something different to you or our next door neighbor. Peace to me means being in harmony with my divine presence. Peace within results in peace around us. Now, many of us are waiting for the opposite to happen. If they'd only get their act together, whether it's my next door neighbor or my relative or my friend or someone across the world, if they'd only get their act together, then I could be at peace. It's the other way around. If I am at peace, I reflect peace. Let's say it together. If I am at peace, I reflect peace. So our saying for today, our words for the day, I am very prosperous, has to do with, deep breath, take off my old ideas, and let's look at it differently. To me, every spiritual teacher that I've studied with or read their books talks about prosperity and forgiveness. Now, we just learned and heard, and I love the Peace Train song, that peace comes from forgiveness. Now, I don't know about you, but that is a word that just kind of, do I have to? Really? Him, her, them? Are you kidding? Wow. Forgiveness is like a salve. Forgiveness is like, I can let that go. Years ago, when I first started studying prosperity, the term, I think it was Catherine Ponder, sweep your mind clear. Now, those of us who are still in the consciousness of a broom or a vacuum, they have these little vacuums now, they run around themselves. You don't even have to do anything. But that sense of sweeping clean my thoughts, sweeping clean my heart of resentment, keeping track, blaming, and shaming. Those are like rocks in our hearts. Those are like weights that keep us feeling it's heavy. My life is heavy. Now, we've all had experiences. We've all had life, we could call them lessons. We've all had life lessons. We've all had spiritual teachers in forms that maybe we didn't recognize. Anyone? My ex-husband was my teacher. Oh, it's true. It's true. How long did it take me to get to that acknowledgement? Might have been a little while. But as we learn from each other, do we learn with condemnation or do we learn with open hearts? Everything that we see out here is happening in here. Everything we see out here is happening in here because we are constantly, I love this word, interpreting. Anyone interpreting the world, interpreting what he said. Maybe he didn't mean what you thought he meant at all. However, because of our life experiences, who's interpreting? Me, you, we. We interpret, and when we interpret, we put our spin on it. That was a great word. We put our spin on it. And then, because we are accustomed, many of us, to feeling hurt, left out, not recognized, whatever words or feelings that we have carried over time after time, we become someone who is repetitious in our viewpoints. Yes, no, maybe. Yes, no, maybe. Forgiveness is what we're peeling it's kind of like taking off the Band-Aid. I'm going to talk a little bit about forgiveness today. Forgiveness is one of those things that someone else can tell us about. You need to forgive that person. Has anyone ever been told that? I have. You need to forgive that person. And once you forgive them, you will feel so much better. Yeah, right. Are you sure? You don't know. And then that opportunity comes in my life or your life to forgive. Forgive. We're giving. We're letting go. Edwene Gaines, who's a wonderful unity minister, and she's written this wonderful book called The 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. Jan tells me we have some of these books in the back. So when you're finished with Effortless Prosperity, look up Edwene. She was a year ahead of me in school. And I was looking up something about forgiveness, and I put in Edwene Gaines in my little iPad, and here came an interview with Edwene from last year. Now, she was a kick. Did you ever have Edwene Gaines here? I know you probably studied her book, but she is a kick. And she did what we call ministry in church or centers, and then she just went on the road talking about forgiveness and prosperity. And in her book, and I've heard her tell this at many workshops, she tells the story of being a young woman. She's a teacher. She has a good job. But she heard that if you went to work for the government in certain places, you would have to only work a few years and then you'd get a trip. She found out if you went to Guam, you only had to be there 2 years and you could have a trip around the world. Oh, that sounded good. So off she went. She got a job in Guam. The first day she was there, she met a very handsome man. Yes, within months she had married him. He was the head of the English department, and she was in bliss. They spent 2 years working there, having a wonderful relationship, and at the end of the 2 years, they're ready to travel the world. She's 3 months pregnant. She's so excited. They're going to have a baby. And they go to Taiwan, and they go to Vietnam, and they go all these places. And they're buying everything because they know they'll never be back. So they want treasures from everywhere they go as they begin their new home in the United States. One day, they're out sightseeing, and she gets tired. She said, I'm so tired, I'm going to go take a nap. I'll meet you at dinner. She wakes up from her nap, and there's a note on the dresser. I'm leaving. I don't want this life. She then found that he had taken the tickets back to the United States. And he had created over $40,000 of credit card debt. And she had nothing. Now, she made it back, called her mom, got a ticket, came home, and was angry. You can imagine. She was, that's it. So she lived like that. She had a beautiful young daughter. She would do things with her daughter and her mom, and eventually she asked her mother, she saw this advertised class. She lived in Texas, by the way, of Silva Mind Control. Was anyone around when Silva Mind Control was around? So she went to a Silva Mind Control class. She didn't have the money to sign up, but she talked her mother into going, and her mom paid, and they went to Silva Mind Control. She liked those people. She liked some of the things they were saying. So then the class was over, and people were talking about going to Unity, and she said, well, what's Unity? So she ended up going to Unity. She ended up going year after year. And then one day the minister talked about forgiveness. She said, I'm done here. I'm done here. And she said he talked about it in a way that got my attention. And once something got my attention, it was hard for me to let that go. What would it be like if I forgave this man who I have said for the last 7 years ruined my life? Am I going to say for the rest of my life it was his fault? So she began studying prosperity, and she became an expert. She's written several books, and she has a whole big chapter on forgiveness. So I'm asking you today, is there one left or two that it's time to let go? Is there one situation, one challenge, one person that it's time to let it go? So breathe with me in that. There's a little article I've kept for years. It's from the 80s. The story is told about a little boy whose father cut out a picture of the world from the daily newspaper and asked him to put it together piece by piece. While he did, the dad did his work. And the little boy ran back in 5 minutes later and had the picture together. And his dad said, "How did you do that?" And the little boy said, "Oh, on the other side of that piece of paper was a picture of the man. And when you put the picture of a man together, the world comes together." Now, this is true in our world today. How many of us are blaming them, whoever them are, and not being willing to forgive in our own hearts? We don't know their life story. We don't know their experiences. I had someone last week after I started talking about forgiveness say, "Yes, but." You don't know what happened. You're absolutely right. I don't. And I would never tell anyone, you have to forgive. I'm suggesting. I'm inviting you in to a prosperous life of hope, of joy, of energy. If I'm willing to sweep my hurt, my disappointment, my frustration, my feelings. Am I willing to sweep? Because what is left is my divine purpose. As long as I'm focusing on my upset, my divine purpose is on hold. Am I willing? Am I willing? Could I? Would I?